Can Britney Spears get a new judge? Well, let's break it down. My name is Christopher Melcher. I'm a California attorney, and I'm passionate about making legal issues easy to understand. There's been a lot of talk about replacing the judge and whether it's possible. And I'm going to go through what California law requires to replace a judge. It's a dangerous thing because the motion has to be filed with the judge that you want removed. And if the judge denies it, it will go to another court to review, and then finally with the Court of Appeal. If it's unsuccessful, you remain with that judge, and now you've made an enemy of that person. So this should only be done when there is a high degree of certainty that it will succeed. California Code of Civil Procedure 170.1 lists the reasons to have a judge removed. First, is the judge a witness in the case? What we're talking about is firsthand knowledge or observation of an incident underlying the lawsuit. And here, that isn't present. Judge Penny has no knowledge of anything other than it's been presented to her in court paperwork. The next reason is if the judge has a financial interest in the case, and what they're talking about is a stake in the litigation. There's no evidence that this judge has any financial interest in the outcome of the case. The judge is paid a salary. They don't make any more money based on how the case turns out, and there's no evidence of any involvement that this court has with any of the financial transactions in this case at all. So that factor does not apply. The next one is if the judge was formerly a lawyer in the case. Obviously, that doesn't apply either. A judge could also be disqualified if a spouse of the judge or a relative of the judge serves as a lawyer in the case. That doesn't apply either. Another one is if the judge is impaired and cannot conduct the case. Now we're talking about some physical or mental disability that keeps the judge from understanding, hearing, thinking. No evidence that that's going on. Another reason would be if the court received a campaign contribution from a party or attorney in the case. We have no evidence that that happened. Finally, a judge can be removed if a reasonable person would entertain doubt as to the judge's impartiality. And that's probably what most people are thinking about when they're saying that the judge should be removed. I've done quite a bit of legal education for lawyers and judges on this topic of eliminating bias in the legal profession. And I've looked at all the cases that have been successful or have been tried to have a judge removed on these grounds. And they kind of go into two categories. One would be if the judge made insensitive remarks on the record about somebody's gender or race. We have no evidence that that's happened here. Another would be harsh words by the judge that showed that the judge was no longer impartial, that the judge was embroiled in the controversy and was angry at the litigant, such that a reasonable person looking at this would view the judge as being partial or embroiled in the controversy. And we have not seen anything like that. And then finally, and the most difficult, is looking at a series of rulings that a court had made against a litigant that were consistently adverse to that party and lacked a legal or factual basis such that a reasonable person looking at this would entertain doubt whether this litigant is getting a fair shake. Just because you lose in court doesn't mean that you had an unfair judge. It just means that the judge didn't agree with you. And that's what happens when you go to court. One person wins, the other person loses. The fact that motions have been made by a litigant and they've all been denied doesn't amount to bias. What we're really looking for is multiple rulings that are made against a party that just can't be explained other than bias or prejudice against this party. Britney asked last year that her father be removed. That was one thing that her court-appointed attorney did, and the judge partially granted that, kept Jamie Spears in place as a conservator of the estate, but then appointed Bessemer Trust, and then failed to follow through on that to make sure Bessemer was put into place. Britney Spears had also asked that this September 29th hearing be advanced, and the court denied that. I've talked previously about reasons why the court may have been unable to accommodate the request to move the hearing earlier up from September 29th, and how that could have actually benefited Britney in a way because it gives her attorney more time to get up to speed and present evidence. Since Britney hasn't asked for a lot through her court-appointed attorney, we don't have the track record of a whole bunch of requests being made by Britney and denied by the judge. And the reason for it is that she had a court-appointed attorney who was very weak, not representing her interests. To me, I don't see that there are grounds to have the court removed under 170.1. It would be extraordinarily risky for Britney's attorney to make a request for disqualification because it would be denied, and then Britney would be adverse to the judge. It's much more effective to persuade the court to rule in our favor rather than making an enemy of the court. There is a way to get a new judge without disqualification. It's called change of venue, and that's a transfer from one county superior court to another. This case started in LA County Superior Court because that's where Britney was living when it was filed in 2008, but now she's living in Ventura County. And that change in residence must have been approved by the conservator and maybe even the court. The way our courts are organized in California is by county. So there's the Los Angeles Superior Court is separate from the Ventura Superior Court. And because she's living in Ventura County, she can ask for what's called a change in venue, which would move her case to a completely different court and therefore a different judge. In ruling on that motion, the court would look at the best interests of Britney to whether the conservatorship should be handled by the court in the county in which she lives or to remain in the county where it started. Probate Code Section 2215B2 creates a presumption, meaning a starting point in the law that the court would have to accept as true, that Ventura County is the appropriate place to have her conservatorship determined if Britney lives there, which she does, and either her spouse, domestic partner, or children live in the county. To my knowledge, Britney's not married, she's not a registered domestic partner, and KFED has 70% of the time. I would think that the children are resident of wherever KFED lives, and I'm not sure if he is in LA or Ventura County. But it could be argued that since she has 30% of the time, that this presumption could apply. She absolutely has the right to ask that the case be transferred to Ventura, and that is not offensive to the LA Superior Court. It's actually more proper that it be in Ventura County where she lives because this is her life that's being affected by it, and it should be a judge of the county in which she resides determining it. A change in venue has to be brought promptly or the right to transfer is waived. Britney moved several years ago to Ventura County, but her court-appointed attorney really wasn't ever properly appointed, certainly not representing her correctly. So now that she has new counsel, I think she does have the opportunity to ask for the change in venue. And if that's something that her attorney thinks is a good idea, he'll need to act promptly on it or the right to transfer will be waived. I don't know that a Ventura court would do anything different than a Los Angeles judge, but this case has been in LA for 13 years and has languished. It would be beneficial to Britney to have a fresh start with a different court. We'll see what happens on September 29th. If Britney feels this is not going in the right direction, I hope she would consider a change in venue, get a fresh pair of eyes on that. Hey, thanks so much for all the positive comments. I'm going to keep making these videos, and I have some news that I'm going to share next week that I'm super excited about, and I'll see you next time.